Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Panels and Bars, the show where we usually talk about geek culture and hip hop culture. And in the year that is the 50th anniversary of hip hop, we won't be discussing that. In a year when the state of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, DC Cinematic Universe, and other geeky franchises are in turmoil, we won't be discussing that either. So I hear you say, could they possibly be discussing Mission Impossible? Maybe they'll talk about the new Indiana Jones. Or maybe even Barbie, as that's been very culturally significant. No, my friends, today we are talking about the 2001 comedy Heartbreakers, starring Jennifer Love Hewitt, Sigourney Weaver, Gene Hackman, Ray Liotta, and Jason Lee. Because apparently, Patrick wants to quit Panels and Bars, and rather than tell me directly, he is very passively aggressively making me watch one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life. Patrick, explain yourself.
So firstly, my explanation is this. We're not competing with all those other podcasts. We're going in our own direction. Do you know how many podcasts there are going to be talking about the 2001 film Heartbreakers this week? I'm betting one, and it's ours. So you know all those people who are Googling Jennifer Love Hewitt and looking at recent results, they're only going to be finding us. Only us. So
maybe playing the long game.
Yeah, maybe you should think about that. There is no point in us discussing what everybody else is talking about. It's boring.
I understand that, but you should maybe discuss something good.
Okay, so what I thought we should start. We should start this when we watch old movies. I think we should start with the section called "What's Problematic."
Yeah.
So this film, I saw this film when I was 15, and I thought it was pretty good. And I watched it again for the first time in 21 years last night. Yeah. And I can see why I enjoyed this when I was a 15-year-old boy. Because
I can see why you enjoyed it when you're a 15-year-old boy too.
I think it might be the perviest film ever made. Like, it is ridiculous. Like, it's not just the fact that the camera work is like the most male gaze thing I've ever seen in my life. It's the fact that the costume designer was sewing with one hand in their pants. Like, everybody looks like they're on the way to an FHM shoot, not a movie set.
5 minutes into it, there's a blue balls joke, like,
yep.
And also someone is so desperate for sex they consider throwing ice over an unconscious woman so that she can have sex with them.
Yes, but instead he pours it down his pants and gets frostbite on his penis. A joke that we can all agree is revolutionary in its intelligence. So what I will say, I will give
features 2 Oscar nominees, by the way.
Yeah. What I will give this is that one thing I thought was kind of interesting is that as the film goes on, and she falls in love with Jason Lee, the male gaze camera work gets less, which I assume is probably supposed to indicate that he is the first person who has ever met Jennifer Love Hewitt and not only thought about having sex with her. It does also, the film is heavily reliant on the idea that all men are just pieces of shit. Just horrible, awful monsters. There's no man in the world who wouldn't cheat on his wife on the day of their wedding if Jennifer Love Hewitt was there wearing a small dress. Which is, I think, quite a forward-thinking idea for 2001. Like, I don't think there were a lot of movies that year that were based on the ideas that men are scum. Ray Liotta is funny in this film.
He's the best thing about this film.
He's very funny. There was a bit where they went out on a boat and he just started wildly firing his gun into the sea that I enjoyed a lot.
We're probably jumping into spoilers for this 20-year-old
spoilers
but what I think my favorite line is towards the end, he says, I thought this whole revenge thing was going to be fun, but you're really ruining it. And the way he delivers it is just fantastic. Like, he's really throwing himself into the role.
And the other thing that I liked, which I thought was really funny, is that Jason Lee plays the stereotypical bimbo love interest, where he has no personality, no development, exists only to serve Jennifer Love Hewitt's character. She treats him terribly, but she makes a big romantic gesture at the end, and he's all like, "Oh, I love you too." It does appear to rely on the premise that he just like he's met her twice and he's known her for 2 days, and he's all like, "I'm in love with you. Let's get married." But then again,
I do not think that's outside the realms of possibility for someone who is, well, like you said, his character is just a massive himbo. So
yeah, and also on top of that, like I can justify that because her mum's job is tricking people into marrying her very quickly, and they've been doing it her whole life. So fine. So the premise of the film is that Sigourney Weaver and Jennifer Love Hewitt are a mother-daughter con artist team, except that they only do 3 cons, right?
Yeah.
One of them is trick guy into marrying him, blue ball him until the wedding night, pretend to fall asleep on the wedding night, put Jennifer Love Hewitt near him in a small dress, catch him cheating, divorce him for money. That appears to be their main job that they do all the time. Their second con is glass in the food. They love glass in the food.
They're it's only really good for a free meal, maybe, and like a bottle of wine. I mean, it doesn't have much mileage.
Yeah, and then the third one that we see
them thinking pretty small because you could potentially get a lawsuit out of that, but they never really push it further than that.
And the third one we see is trip over my daughter in the lobby of a hotel, then squirt water on the floor and make them give us a free room, which is odd. Like it's an odd. Yeah. What I did like is that there's a really funny vibe here where like they kind of hate each other. And the bit where she trips her daughter over is brutal. Like her kid nails her face on the floor. And when she's all like, "Oh my God, it hurts," her mum's like, "Fucking make it hurt more. Play it up. Come on. Come on, kid. You're barely even pretending to be hurt properly." So it's a really weird film. So beforehand, you asked me, is it better than Catch Me If You Can? And I think the answer to that is no. In fact, it's not just worse than Catch Me If You Can. It is worse than most films.
And I think it only barely survives and stays together as a movie because it has such a talented cast. Because anyone with the lesser skill range, it would be painful.
Yeah, it's a terrible film, but like the script is quite poor. But really like there's bits like Sarah Silverman plays a bit part as a girl,
and Zach Galifianakis just randomly Jason Lee's best friends, and neither one of them is being weird or trying to steal the show. It's just like they're extra people in the scene, which I don't think I've ever seen either one of them do. Yeah,
but Sarah Silverman is funny in it. Like she's weird and funny, and like and Sigourney Weaver's really funny. She's horrible. There's a really weird vibe where there's a sequence where she's like, Sigourney Weaver's
on the side, right? Because we talk about the male gaze. Sigourney Weaver is one of those people who has been in quite a lot of male gazy stuff, and obviously she is such a big name and must hold so much weight and she's got so much gravitas behind her that you do kind of wonder, does she just enjoy it? Because like there's a scene at the beginning of this where she has lingerie ripped off her, and that doesn't need to be in there. If it does, we don't need to see as much as we do. So you kind of wonder, like, maybe she's just fine with it.
Maybe I wonder if maybe Sigourney Weaver was all like, "Hey, it's 2001. I've been famous for like 20 years. People don't think I'm a slamming hottie anymore, and they fucking should. I'm gonna take half my clothes off in this film, and I'm gonna show everybody that I've still got an incredible body for somebody my age. Maybe
she is one of the funniest. Like, she's really one of those people who is very good at comedy as well as drama. But like one of her best comedic roles, Galaxy Quest, a massive part of that character is also just, I'm still really hot. I know you thought I was hot, but I'm also still really hot. So I think maybe she really fully enjoyed doing this film.
There's a sequence near the end of this where they are trying to hide and transport a corpse, and it has the most ludicrously visceral injury sounds that I've ever heard in my life. Like there's a bit where they're trying to put this corpse in the trunk, and they accidentally slam the trunk on his legs, and it makes this just horrible crunching noise. It's horrific. There's also a dead guy penis joke in there, which is quite something. It's weird. It's kind of like around this time they were all like, "Hey, you know what's popular? It's like American Pie. What if we did something with that kind of tone, but we hired Oscar-nominated world-class actors to be in it? Maybe that would be good." And the answer is, it's still not good, but it is probably better than a lot of the gross-out teen comedies of the time. Because, like, Gene Hackman's role in this is...
If you go back, sorry, if you go back to the beginning, I tell you what, I mean, and don't even know why I'm criticizing this on any kind of critical level, because it's not good. But the opening scene happens, and there is, and it's a grift, and then it ends, and then you're supposed to be like, oh my gosh, they knew each other. None of that works. Just get rid of that scene, because we've seen the poster. We know what the premise of the film is. We know they're in on it together. And also, the needle, the massive reveal is Jennifer Love Hewitt whipping off her wig to reveal hair that is very similar to the wig.
She takes off this wig any level. And underneath is the same hair. What I really thought was funny was that there's a sequence where he's running to their hotel room with her in his arms, and it is so long. It's like 20 or 30 seconds long of him just running down the hallway carrying her. And I was like, what is this? Like, what?
I think the point of it is supposed to be, it's like he wants the sex right now. And it's like, I get that. I don't need to see this search in real time. I understand that Ray Liotta is incredibly horny. Can we skip to the opening credits, please?
Yeah, he's so horny. But
it also dates itself because it's got that very late 90s, early 2000s whimsical music throughout the entire thing.
Yeah.
Everyone in it is horrible. So it's like, whilst they're scheming and plotting to basically defraud all these people, it's all like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, it's like a gross out sex comedy with the soundtrack of the first half of Home Alone. It's fucking bizarre. And yeah, like, so there's also a bit where Ray Liotta's all like, if we're going to be together, you can't con people anymore. You need a nice fucking honest job, like chopping cars, which was very fun. He's honestly...
He has the best lines in the whole thing.
Yeah, he's really funny throughout, in fairness. And it's just, but it's also like, they're just horrible. Like, Sigourney Weaver's so horrible to her kids. Jennifer Love Hewitt's character, like, there's a bit where she meets Jason Lee, and she's like, and in fairness, it's kind of vaguely interesting because I suppose that having been forced to wear small dresses all the time by her mum, she is like, just assumes that every man she meets is going to be hitting on her, and she's really, really like horrible to him. Like, he's all like, hey, can I get you a drink? Because he's the bartender. And she's all like, fuck off, you piece of shit. I would never sleep with you. You're fucking disgusting.
Jason Lee hated that scene because it was my main problem with this, and I'm sure somebody who's watched a film in your lifetime, I'm sure you guessed every single joke before the punchline. And that was my thing about this. There is a way in which that kind of comedy works. Like, and we've spoken about this in the past. Sitcoms, some of the best sitcoms work entirely in that way. So Friends, Frasier, they set up the conceit at the beginning. This character goes off in this route, and that character goes from that route, and you know exactly what's going to happen. That's some of the best episodes of Frasier, are knowing 10 minutes before that punchline lands how it's going to go. And it's watching, it's the cringe factor, it's the train wreck effect, but that's funny to watch. But in this, it wasn't done in the same way. It's just like, he's going to hit on her, she's not going to realize he's here to take her order. I just felt like every scene was like, I was with my partner, and every time someone opened their mouth, I was like, it's going to be this. It's going to be this. She's going to break the penis off the statue. It was a slog to watch.
Yeah, and there's a bit where what I also thought was weird was that early on, Jason Lee's character is kind of snarky. He's kind of like his Mallrats character. He's kind of snarky, and when she's being rude to him, he's like trading back with some banter. And then after about 5 minutes, after about 2 scenes with him in, he just stops doing that, and he's just all like, "I'm in love with you. Like, I love you so much," and like, she's been nothing but awful to him the entire time they've known each other. I assume that the idea is that because she's hot, he's like, well, she's horrible and she insults me and she keeps randomly leaving and she kisses me sometimes but punches me other times. But I don't know, look at her. Which is...
It's self-esteem by The Offspring, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know, men do suck. So there was quite a lot of that stuff that I was all like, well, that seems like, if it was a man and a woman the other way around and the woman was the
Yeah.
one doing this, I would be all like, I don't think any woman would put up with that shit. But because
No.
men are morons, I was all like, yeah, maybe,
One thing that like I don't know if actually it was good writing or if they just never got around to resolving it. But one thing I did actually quite like was the fact that Jennifer Love Hewitt's character remains fairly incompetent for the whole film. She never
Yeah.
actually grows in her skills as a grifter for the entire thing. She's kind of awful.
Yeah, she's terrible at it. She's legitimately she's awful at it. And in fairness, Sigourney Weaver, for somebody who's been doing it for her entire life, is also
She
not great.
barely makes it. Yeah.
Like they are failing, and their plans are just horrendous, absolutely horrific, and then Gene Hackman's character, who is an old man who smokes a lot. That's his entire joke. He's like he smokes a lot, and he's horny for smoking. He loves women who smoke, and he thinks that it's. There's a bit where he calls somebody a Nazi because they won't let him smoke in a fucking auction or something. And he's just, and then he just dies.
I was actually surprised. I thought it was gonna be a thing where they were going to take him back to the car and he'd wake up halfway through. So I actually was surprised that didn't happen. Yeah. But yeah, I love that he seems fully invested in the role and then just dies.
He just dies suddenly. Yeah. And also, why hire Gene Hackman for that? He's such a wonderful actor, and his job, most of his lines are coughing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like he's in that. There's like a bracket where it's like him, Anthony Hopkins, where it's like they're distinguished people with such range and such gravitas to them. And it's like, we'll just have him cough, be horny, and die. That's it.
Yeah, cough, be horny, die. That's it. And on top of that, actually, I forgot during What's Problematic, but there's a bit where Ray Liotta says he's going to turn them in, and then he makes some jokes about women's prisons, I was just like, oh my God, I cannot, it's 20 years ago, so sure, it's a long time ago, but even by those standards, I was all like,
I almost feel like
this is.
If you had written it exactly the same way today, it would almost seem not progressive, but it's almost it is poking fun at that trope of that certain man who is of a certain time, a certain age, and thinks that's how you talk about people at all. So I think, it almost worked today. I mean, I don't think it was intentional when they wrote it, but he is a funny character.
I also think that there's a level at which, it kind of has that It's Always Sunny vibe where they are all horrible people. So when they say horrible things, it's not like, it's not like when they make awful jokes in Scrubs and you're all like, I'm supposed to like these people. These people are terrible monsters. Yeah, they're garbage humans. So also there's some really weird, there was some bits where it was a bit like mildly mother-daughter incesty.
Very weird. I mean, just the whole concept of knowing your daughter is that hot and parading her around in the shortest skirts ever made, cleavage out all the time. And then it's also the fact that, it's a comedy and it would never happen, but she puts her in a lot of situations where all it takes is a slight bit of mistiming on Sigourney Weaver's part. If anyone in the office, outside the office, needs to ask Sigourney Weaver for something and she can't come in the door to catch you, that man is basically going to force himself on Jennifer Love Hewitt. And if she's not quick enough to find a reason not to engage in that act, you've just thrown your daughter into that. It's really grim.
Yeah, in fairness, there was a really funny bit where she was all like, you're saying I'm too old. My butt's amazing. Touch my butt. And then Jennifer Love Hewitt was all like, Mom, I'm not touching your butt again. And I was like,
interesting, there is the seed of a germ of a good idea in here, but they've just taken it down the most predictable route. And like I said, if it wasn't for such a talented cast, oh God, it would be hard to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it is quite hard to watch. It was.
I can actually imagine a modern version of this being a straight to Netflix film that does modded really well because modern audiences are stupid.
I can also see a modern version of this where they keep the same cast but fix the script, which could be an amazing film. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just not quite
good
there. Yeah, it was really, really weird. And I kind of thought I remember it being good, but I guess I was 15 and Jennifer Love Hewitt's boobs are out all the time, so I suppose that maybe that was what I liked about it, which isn't a great thing to
it's
have to
funny
acknowledge.
because I've spoken about Jennifer Love Hewitt to people before because I know more than one person who is a fan of Ghost Whisperer, which apparently she's fantastic in, and I'm going to take them at their word because everything I've seen her in, she's passable. But the one thing I will say, there is a maybe 5-second window in this when she's genuinely fantastic, and that is when she pretends to fall asleep. Jason Lee kisses her on the forehead, and the camera zooms in on her because she knows he's about to do this thing and potentially prove her mother right. And all you see is her still pretend to be asleep, but a tear rolls down her cheek, and that is fantastic.
Yeah.
The rest of the film, whoo, she is punching above her weight, sharing scenes with Sigourney Weaver. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I think that is the big problem as well, is that like she's not bad. She's probably of about the level I would expect the actors in this script to be. But the problem is that like when you put her in a scene with Ray Liotta, Gene Hackman, and Sigourney Weaver, it's all like, wow, I mean, she's not them though, is she? Like, that I also, how did you feel about the part where Sigourney Weaver was pretending to be Russian, but she didn't really speak Russian? And then they asked her to sing a Russian song.
So I was going to say, as it progressed, I was like, this can't get any worse or more tedious. And then they butcher a Beatles classic, and I was like, okay.
Then she sang back in the USSR in a bad Russian accent. And I was all like, oh no, okay, this is terrible. I got to say, what I would say for that scene is that what I really liked was the fact that she only sang about 30 seconds of it.
Yeah, luckily it just ends. Even the film knows they've dragged it on for too long.
I was like cringing out of my skin. Also, at the end, so she's lied to Jason Lee about her name because she's a con artist and that's what they do. And then at the end, she buys him his bar back, which she got in their divorce after she tricked him into marrying her, and then her mum date raped him. And then she's all like, I bought your bar back. And he's all like, I love you. And she's like, my name's Paige. It's like, it's this bizarre scene where like she's bought him this bar and it's like the romantic endpoint and he doesn't know her name. He knows nothing. Like, I had a lot of questions at the end because then it goes straight into a weird epilogue where Ray Liotta and Sigourney Weaver are conning that old woman she knows out of somebody.
Okay, so let's think about that quickly, right? This once again, I think, speaks to the possible incompetence of the mother also. For that grift to work where they're pretending that your friend works for the IRS, why would you need to give her your actual account details?
Yeah.
Jennifer Love Hewitt doesn't need that. This woman's just pretending that she's from the IRS. She doesn't need any of your details to pretend. And why would you give her your account details? It's ludicrous.
Also, is the bank manager in on
Is he on this? And like, maybe he's woman just turned up pretending to be from the IRS, and you've just said, okay.
Yeah, no need for ID or anything. In fairness, maybe the bank manager's not in it.
I don't think the IRS just goes to you, hey, so you can just pay us whenever you want, or we might come back and jail you for fraud. That's not how that works. You get taken to court.
Also, she's like, the other thing that I was thinking is that when they get the settlement from Ray Liotta, they get $300,000, but she lies and tells her daughter that it was only $80,000.
$80,000, yeah.
And they say that she's done this about 10 times, right? So she's got by my maths, she's got between 800.
She's been married at least 13 times.
But so she's got between like $1 million and $4 million in that account. Yeah. And the IRS lady is all like, hey, you've never paid any tax. So we're taking your $4 million and also you owe us $250,000. And I was all like, what tax bracket is that? They can be all like, hey, so you've got $4 million and you haven't paid any tax on it. So now you owe us $4,300,000. It's like even with the most insane tax and penalties, they would have some money left over, right? 100%. Like, it also doesn't go into a lot of detail about like how much money they've got or whatever. Like, they've only got like $2,000, and then they go and stay at that hotel and they fall over on their face and she gets a free room. But I was all like, but they'd still want a credit card, right?
Yeah.
They'd still want some proof that you have some money,
Money.
wouldn't
Yeah.
they?
Also, there's so many things that they do where I'm like, okay, maybe you could explain it with false IDs, but they managed to just obtain wedding licenses and a divorce lawyer, and it's like, but those aren't your names.
Yeah, those aren't your
How
names. You
are
don't
you
have the
doing
ID.
these?
Yeah, I guess they do. Ray Liotta does say at one point they found their fake passports. So I guess
Yeah.
maybe they have fake ID for their fake names. But then how do you get access to the money, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't set up a bank account with it. Yeah, the whole thing is like so paper thin in terms of the actual plot of how they con people. And then that's just background for a comedy that isn't very funny and
No.
is quite offensive. Also,
Yeah.
there's
I was
bits
gonna
in
say,
this.
tying into the always sunny nature of everyone being awful, there was a moment when Gene Hackman's long-suffering maid is arrested, and he turns to the
Oh my
police officer
god!
and was like, "Could you slap her around a bit?" It's like she's been taking care of you for years. You only just now found out that she might have betrayed you, and it's like you're bribing someone to abuse her on the way to prison.
The maid is like, I know I'm onto you, Sigourney Weaver, and she's all like, she frames her for stealing the jewelry, and then gets her arrested, and then yeah, he's just like, if you could slap her around a bit, that'd be great. And I was just like, oh my god, I
I do
cannot.
love, I do love the nurse, the maid being like, "If you look into my eyes, you'll see I didn't do this," and she's just got the most cursed face, so that's what seals her fate.
Yeah, what I also thought was really funny was the bit where the maid was all like, "I've been his maid for 20 years. I'm onto you," and she's all like, "Oh no, I would never do anything." And then the maid's all like, "When he dies, I'm gonna get all this money." And like, it's not like she cares about him.
No,
She's
she
just
just
like,
wants a fortune for herself.
she's like, "I deserve the cash, not you, you Russian bitch." Um, yeah, it's fucking wild.
The whole thing is wild.
I tell you what. So what I would say is another measure which I'm going to give it, which it applies to something else I'm going to talk about later. This film made me want a cigarette so much. Like I haven't smoked properly for like a year now, but goddamn, it's just in that kind of on the cusp of smoking bans where everybody in this is just smoking. Like they're just smoking in restaurants, they're smoking at auctions, they're smoking in the and I was just like, oh my god, I would kill for a cigarette right now. Actually, you know what? The other scene where Jennifer Love Hewitt was good was they after the first con they go for dinner, and they go to this fancy restaurant and her mum's pretending to be all fancy, and she just like slaps a cigarette in her mouth and like gets out this deck of cards, and she's just like scamming it across.
Yeah, that part's actually really good.
And her whole demeanor changes from this. Up until that point, she was playing the role of the lady who was going to seduce him, so she was all like, "Oh, I'm so innocent, and sweet," and then she just kind of switches gear into this like. She looks like she's playing like a gangster in a 40s movie. And that was really fun. And again, like there's kind of the germ of an idea there that could be the kind of the basis for some really funny jokes. But it ain't. It ain't.
Never delivers on that promise.
No, it's I would say it's the worst film I've watched in quite some time.
Yeah, if I didn't have to watch it for this, I would have switched off maybe 20 minutes in. And my partner just kept laughing because I was like, Patrick he no longer wants to be my friend. He has done this to sabotage our friendship and the podcast. And he's trying to drive me to just hang it all up. I thought that's what this was.
I mean, what I would also say is that like the problem is that you remember when we did the episode on Eternals, like Eternals was so bad that it was actually quite funny. But this doesn't quite get there. Like it's not like I can describe bits of it in a way that's humorously like outraged by because it's not
like it's like you say, like there's an Always Sunny undercurrent, but it doesn't commit to that. Like the thing that everyone loves about Always Sunny is that none of them grow, none of them evolve, and none of them learn, and it fully commits to that. And if this had gone that way, and they had just like ended up living in Jason Lee's mansion or something, and he was homeless, I would be fully on board. But it wants to be both of those things, and so because you can already see it going that way, you see the moment when she goes to kiss him to prove her mother wrong, but she starts to fall for him. Like, it's just all very predictable, and none of it
and
is
it's not justified at all. Like, I don't believe in the two main characters' love story at all. Like, in fairness, Ray
I can
Liotta
almost
and
buy
Sigourney
Ray Liotta
Weaver,
and Sigourney Weaver because we're just terrible people. Let's be terrible people together.
yeah, and that's kind of funny, and that's kind of a cool idea. But it doesn't give us any time with any of it either. Like, it's just constantly rushing through things. So even when it's got an idea that might be funny, it's just gone 2 seconds later, and it's another long scene of them following somebody in a car or something. Like, and there's weird stuff like, so early on, it sets up the idea that Jennifer Love Hewitt, she's bad at driving. And then there's no payoff. It doesn't, it's not relevant to anything. Like, I assumed that there was going to be a sequence later on where either she needed to be good at driving and overcame her bad driving, or her bad driving caused some sort of thing that was relevant to the plot. But nah, she's just shit at driving. And they show that a couple of times, and then it's like, she's just shit at driving. And it's like, why? Like, why would you spend time in your film on that? Like, it was long too. Like, it was not long. It's 2 hours long, and it has got at best 25 minutes worth of plot. Like, and then the rest of it is either bad jokes, long sequences where nothing happens. Like, there's a bit where she's trying to trick a guy who works at the auction into breaking the penis off a statue that she's bought by accident because Gene Hackman was trying to buy it, but he was coughing too much.
That's actually a good scene. That did make me laugh.
Yeah. And like, she's like making eyes at this guy to try and get him to go too far to the side so that the penis gets knocked off the statue.
It's such an intricate plot, a stupid joke.
And it's so long. Like, it cuts between her and the guy and the statue, and her and the guy and the statue. And I was like, I get it, man. She's trying to get him to get the statue over there, but it just doesn't. And then she's all like, men are useless without their penis. When the penis falls off the statue, and I was all like,
there were 3 jokes in that scene, and I guessed all of them. And the first, when I guessed it, I was like, I hate that I knew that was going to be a joke. And she says, there's a crack, and I turned to my partner, I was like, it's going to be a butt joke. And the guy immediately goes, that's just his butt. And it's like, I hate how much of this film I guessed without having seen it before. I hate it.
And it's not even like a joke, like he misunderstands and thinks that she's talking about the butt, but she's not. She's all like, there's a crack. And he's all like, it's a butt.
Yeah.
It's a butt crack. Yeah, it was fucking awful. I honestly, like, I tell you what, the other thing I liked was there was a bit where her and her mum were arguing over who they were going to con next. And they were like, whoever gets that guy to buy me a drink first wins. And they were both like trying to seduce him. And then Sigourney Weaver just started coughing, and he was all like, do you need a drink? And she was all like, I win. And then Jennifer Love Hewitt hit him and was all like, you're fucking useless. And they just walked off. And this dude was just sat at the bar like, I'm having a drink. Oh, a young, beautiful lady's hitting on me. Oh, a slightly older, beautiful lady's hitting on me. Oh my God, they're both hitting. Oh, and they hit me.
What I did like about that is tying into the whole men are absolutely useless. He didn't seem that devastated. He just seems to be like, that was cool. They were perfect on me.
Yeah, good times for me.
Doesn't check to see if they're pickpockets or like, he's just like, that was nice.
But also, so after they decide on Gene Hackman instead of so they've got 3 prospects. They've got Mama's boy, who plays croquet with his mum on the lawn, man who has sex with 5 women at a time, and they make a really weird comment where the mum's kind of a bit like, maybe we'd have to have a threesome with him, which is just horrific.
You get the feeling that if Jennifer Love Hewitt had agreed, she'd fully be like, okay, that's how we're going to get the money.
Yeah, and that's like, I think it reminds me a little bit of the 90s sitcoms weird obsession with men having sex with sisters. Yeah. I think it's kind of like vaguely trying to play into that kind of fetishistic idea of mum-daughter stuff, and but it's gross, and it's not even the source of any funny jokes.
It's not, and also like Jennifer Love Hewitt says "you," but I don't get the feeling she's disgusted by the fact the mum would be involved. She's disgusted by the fact another person would be involved.
Yeah, she's disgusted by the guy as well. Yeah. Like, he's gross.
Yeah.
And then
It's a lot.
prospect number 3 is Gene Hackman, and they decide on Gene Hackman. But then Jennifer Love Hewitt just carries on pursuing Mama's Boy, and then there's this bit where she's like trying to help with the con on Gene Hackman and trying to pursue the Doctor, and it's the
And
scene
not
where she meets
multitask
Jason
at
Lee.
all.
Yeah, but it's like it's also just like ludicrously confusing, like because she's
Yeah.
doing essentially her character's doing 3 things at the same time, and I'm supposed to be paying attention to all of them. And then she has like a scene with the Mama's Boy Doctor guy where which in fairness was quite funny, where she actually
pretty
hits him
good,
in the eye, and then he's
Yes.
all like, "Mummy, my cornea." And he was
The
quite
wrestler
funny.
has been damaged, I'm aware.
Yeah. And he was that guy playing the Doctor with the Mummy's Boy was really funny. He's never in it again. No further mention. Don't know why they spent so much time on him when he's just never in it again. But like it's like it's like a setup. Like it's the meet cute between our leading couple, and it's undercut by there being 2 other plots going on.
Yeah.
One of which, in fairness, is the main plot of the film, but the other one, which is just completely pointless. And like,
it also does set up a recurring thing in this movie, which it shouldn't bug me because everything about this film is stupid and obviously not well thought out. And it annoys me when this happens in any film. Someone leaves, and we see the person leave in a car. We then see them being observed by someone who is just stood there, and yet the second person catches up to the first person.
yeah,
How long it
beats
takes
mode.
to leave a place, find your car, start the car, and then find out what route that person went on. And yet, in every film, it happens with no problem. I mean, it happens like 3 times in this film. There's a part where her mum suspects she has a boyfriend, and her mum watches her go down the driveway, and then somehow, how do you know what direction she went in?
Yeah, her mum watches her drive away down the driveway of the hotel, and then she arrives at her boyfriend's house, and her mum is outside in the car. She's just all like, I'm observed. It's like, how did you
do that?
How is that possible? The other thing I liked, that I thought was funny, was that Jennifer Love Hewitt's character, there's a couple of moments. So there's a moment where she's in the bar, and he's all like, and they're like, Zach Galifianakis and Jason Lee and Sarah Silverman are looking at her like she's like graceful. And then she goes over to the cigarette machine and just like kicks it and yanks on the knob so that a packet of cigarettes fall out for free. And again, like there were little touches like that. There were moments of her physical performance that were funny and that actually did quite a good job of telling a story without dialogue, which is especially weird when the rest of the film repeatedly feels the need to just say what's happening on screen at us all the fucking time.
This is like the meet cute scene. The minute she looks up at the Heimlich poster, we all knew what was going to happen. So it has moments like that, and then like you said, and a minute later, someone would be like, "So this is the plot now." It's like, what is this? It's just a mess.
Yeah. Also, there's a bit where she goes to the beach. She follows him to the beach, and he's like looking at stars through a telescope, and she's wearing like a tiny dress and huge heels, obviously, because that's all she ever wears throughout the entire film. And then she like falls over in the mud. And again, like the weird running down the hallway scene, the bit where she's stuck in the mud is like weirdly long, and that it's not even filmed like in as pervy a way. Like they'll make regular stuff super like picking up a box or something super pervy. And then there's a bit where she's half naked rolling around in mud, and all the shots are of like her hair. And I was like,
there is actually a good piece of dialogue that I do like, which is when she first catches him with a telescope. She's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I watch the stars." And she's like, "They have a right to a private life too, you know." And like, it's actually a really good bit of dialogue because it's also very telling of her character, and it has moments like that, but there's just nowhere near enough of them for me to. It's got
Yeah, there was also when they were looking at the stars, there was a bit where he's like, "Here's some stars," and she's all like, "They're fucking stupid." And he's all like, "Here's some more stars," and then he goes to move on to the next set, and she's all like, "Oh, no, hold on a minute." And I liked, and again, that indication that she's never had anything normal because her mum and her are con artists. And then there's just this little moment. And again, it was subtle, but it was quite well done. And then they will just yell how they're feeling at each other for 2 seconds. Yeah, it was shit. It's a 1 out of 10. I mean, and what I would say is it's not even the funny kind of shit. If you're going into it thinking, maybe this will be funny to watch because it's so bad, like Batman versus Superman. It's not even that kind of bad.
No.
It's just a complete failure in every respect, unless you're real horny for 2001 Jennifer Love Hewitt and don't have access to the internet but do have a DVD of this film. I guess that's the only time I could say. Or if you're really horny for Sigourney Weaver circa 2001, I guess as well.
Which of course would just
it sucked dick. It was shit.
Also, whilst we're talking about super horny Sigourney Weaver, there's a scene when Ray Liotta cuts her lingerie, but seemingly only cuts like the outer facade. Like she's still wearing lingerie after he does that.
Yeah.
So you just ruined her lingerie essentially.
Well, I think that maybe the joke there is she takes off her dress, but what looks like part of the dress is actually this weird, like
I was wondering that
full body fishnet suit.
I was wondering that he doesn't seem frustrated by the whole thing after that though. So I didn't get what was happening.
And then he cuts off the full body fishnet suit, and there's more underwear underneath. I assume that maybe it's how she makes sure that it takes long enough
I thought
for
that
them
was
to start having
I think the
sex.
lingerie is off, but there's laundry underneath it. But
there's more underneath. Yeah,
in such a weird way that I was like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah, that's and a lot of it's like that, like where I'm like, is that the joke? Is that?
I almost wonder if you're giving them too much credit.
Yeah, absolutely. But overall,
we're 1 out of 10.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody for any reason. And next week we'll be covering the movies of Josh Hartnett. We're gonna just go through everything Josh Hartnett.
I have no problem covering the movies of my good friend Josh Hartnett. So we'll catch you next week. And thank you for listening, watching. And if you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Send this to your friend. Peace.
Yes. Farewell.